Turn the value up, turn it loud. Miami's pride, make us proud. CanesWear crew, you hear the crowd. Hurricanes ain't backing down. Every play, every score. Raising bets and raising roar. Rocking orange, green galore. All for one and one for four. We got FTSN, taking names, winning again. Podcast fam, till the end. Tune in, now let's begin.
Look at that. On mute. Here we go. Let's try this again. This is another episode of CanesWear Daily Podcast. I am your host, Brad Tejeda, and we are back for another week of Miami Hurricanes football. We are less than, 24 hours till kickoff, noon kickoff, that is. Miami Hurricanes versus Louisville Cardinals. As y'all know, we've had a lot of great shows on the FTSN network the past week on the CanesWear Daily Podcast. If you haven't checked any of those shows out, make sure you do that. Hit that like and subscribe button. And as y'all know, it's Friday, Fan Friday. We hope to get some fan interactions in here tonight. If you want to join the show, please let us know in the comment section below, and we will happily have you on the show. If you go on our social media on Twitter as well, we have the StreamYard link directly to hop on the show. So make sure you hit that if you want to chop it up with me and a few other guests that we'll have throughout the night, talking a little bit of Miami Hurricanes football. But yeah, man, like I said before, you guys know the drill, man. We got to patiently wait extra week of football this past week of not watching Miami Hurricanes play some football. And now we get to see our football team getting some action in Kentucky here. And this is going to be a team in Louisville that's going to be throwing out all the cards, all the stops. I got to tell you what, I mean, I think this is one of those games on the schedule before the season even started that you had a circle on your calendar, right? I think this game and the Florida State game stretch was probably how I thought the way the Virginia Tech and Cal game ended up going. I thought these two games would probably be very similar to how those two games played out. And obviously, watching Florida State currently, Manny Diaz is about to do the impossible, and Mike Norvell is about to do the possible, and that's defeating the Florida State Seminoles as Duke Blue Devils head coach, which I don't think Duke has ever beaten Florida State in their career. So this is going to be a huge, huge W if Manny Diaz and the Duke Blue Devils can pull this one off. And it's always great to see our Florida State Seminoles pain and sorrow each and every week. So you got to love to see that. But yeah, going back to our Miami Hurricanes football. As y'all know, man, bye week history of this team in the past, man. I think in the last 8 years, we've only won one bye coming off of a bye. And prior to Mario Cristobal being the head coach at Miami, I believe he was 7-0 undefeated at Oregon before being the head coach at Miami. And now he has fallen to now 0-2 after the bye. Y'all know the debacle from the Georgia Tech game last season, losing 23-20. And then, of course, the year prior to that, 2022, was against North Carolina, 27-24. Another 3-point loss. But this is going to be, again, this is a trend that in the past, Miami doesn't play up to par for this type of football game. But again, what you've seen with this football team from the beginning of the first week of the season against playing Florida in the swamp is the old trends are kind of in the past. We're starting to rewrite history with all these different games that we've been playing. We've been battling adversity. Guys been stepping up. And we got number one Cam Ward at quarterback. And before we continue, as y'all know, this is the CanesWear Daily Podcast. Our guys, Brett and the gang over at CanesWear, just got a bunch of the new Cam Ward jerseys in, whether it's for men, women, or kids. I just got a couple myself. They got them in white, green, orange. They even got jerseys for baseball and basketball with the Cam Ward jersey number and name on the back, man. So make sure you guys go check that out. Only on CanesWear.com. But this is the Louisville team that, especially their offensive coordinator and their head coach with the Braun brothers, Jeff and Brian Braun. These are two individuals that are, in most cases, people that watch the game of football are just in love with the game planning, the strategy, and kind of just, throwing out different plays that you're not expecting. These are two guys that are at the top of the list in those. If you saw a recent interview post game of Cliff Kingsbury, I believe, head coach at the Arizona Cardinals, he gave a shout out to I believe it was Jeff or Brian Brom over the weekend over a trick play that he did. And of course, these guys are known for getting one or two big victories every single year against an opponent that they're not expected to win. So these underdog type of games of Louisville and the Braun brothers, this is something that they're not used to. So that's something that you got to look for into this game. And to be quite honest with you folks, I'm not worried about our offense against their defense. Their defense is not really subpar. They've been pretty dismantled all throughout the year against lesser talented opponents like ourselves. We obviously got Jalen Rivers coming back. We got the full arsenal in the group with Cam Ward and others. I expect our running game to be one of the consistent things that go out throughout the football game, especially in the first half. But with this Louisville team, they are a team that could definitely put up points and put up big numbers very early on in a football game. They are number 2 in the country in big plays, over 40 yards, just behind Ole Miss. And as you know, with our Miami Hurricanes defense, this is a team that struggled in big plays. So in my opinion, I mean, obviously this is on the players 100% because they're the ones playing the game. But at the same time, I want to see a better scheme and a better game plan from Coach Lance Guidry and the rest of the defensive group. I've been really high on Lance Guidry from the beginning. I'm still, very confident in Lance Guidry, but I think this is a game and a huge opportunity for Lance Guidry to really show why he deserves, that pay raise and to possibly being one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. Because when you're coming off a bye and you're going against a Louisville team that is powerful, they're going to have some guys like Isaac Brown, true freshman running back from Homestead High School. That's definitely going to be a tough guy to take down, along with some good wide receivers and a quarterback in Tyler Shuck, who can really test the defense in different scenarios. So I expect this to be somewhat of a high-scoring football game unless our defensive line can really get to the quarterback very early, something that we hoped was going to happen all throughout the year. But obviously it hasn't been that. We've been playing from behind at times. But I want to see some of the adjustments in the way our defense plays in the second half, fourth quarter. I need to see that from the beginning, right off the jump, first quarter. But as y'all know, this is Fan Friday. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button, drop a comment in the chat. And like I said before, if you guys want to jump on the show, talk a little bit of Canes football, whether it's this game, prior games that's happened, or a little bit of recruiting, feel free to jump on the show or drop a comment below. And make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. But going back to Lance Guidry, like I was saying before, I think he's one of the key guys that you're going to look for in this football game that I think is really going to get tested early on against a Louisville team. Like I mentioned before, they got a lot of weapons, and they got 2 offensive mind guys that have no problem throwing out all the stops. And this is a team that barely got a victory last weekend against Virginia, I believe. And they still got a pretty tough road ahead of them. If I'm not mistaken, they still got Clemson and Pittsburgh to go against as far as the ACC schedule is concerned. And when you look at the kind of not only current standings, but the future standings of where this ACC potential championship may go, it's really looking like a 3-way tie between SMU, Clemson, and Miami right now. And Louisville is a team that already lost to SMU. So I think it is very important for the Miami Hurricanes to win this football game because obviously we do not play SMU this year. And you do not want to make sure that you have a common opponent where one team has a win and one has a loss, because if you end up having a tiebreaker at the end of the day, it could take the nod to the other team. But with Lance Guidry in this defense, I do want to hear from some of you fans. If you want to let me know in the chat, who are some of the guys on defense, not only in this football game, but throughout the rest of the year that you're looking to step up, whether it's a true freshman like Zaquan Patterson or even OJ Romanes-Frederick to take that next step, or if it's someone like a veteran guy that you expected a lot from, like a Jaden Harris or a Mish Powell, to really take another step from what you were seeing before. Drop some names in the comments. Let us know how you feel. But here shortly, I'm hoping to get a couple guests on the show as well, so we can chop it up, talk a little Hurricanes football. As y'all know, this is Fan Friday. But going back to this Louisville matchup, as y'all know, there's a couple things like the homecoming for Louisville. This will be a homecoming game for Louisville. They're bringing out the all black unis. If you haven't seen online or on Twitter, they got the matte black helmets with the Cards logo on the side. Look pretty clean. I'm not gonna lie, they usually got some of the best uniforms in the ACC, but they're going all black. It's gonna be a noon game, and people from South Florida or Florida in general, you're thinking, why are you gonna wear all black like early in the day? It's gonna be hot. Won't be too hot in Louisville. It'll be around like probably 50, 60, 70 degrees at the most during kickoff, so it won't be too hot. So I don't think they're really too worried about the color contrast of the jersey combinations. I think they're probably going to be more worried about this Miami Hurricane team in the third and fourth quarter, because as you guys seen and heard from other teams like South Florida, Virginia Tech, and Cal, when it gets to that third and fourth quarter, we really start to get a huge lead or come from behind and really battle through adversity, not only because what our offense does, but our trenches alone just really they end up finding that next gear when you get to that third and fourth quarter. And I think Mario, that's a huge testament to Mario and how he recruits, develops, and goes after guys that are committed to this football program, because he always talks about that third and fourth quarter especially, that when you feel like you have nothing left in the tank, what else are you going to get out of a young man, right? And I think this is another huge opportunity for the football team to go on the road against Louisville in a pretty hostile environment. Thankfully, it is a noon game. It's not a 3:30 or a 8 o'clock game. I think the later this game is, the tougher it would be for Miami. But like I said before, this is going to be a tough matchup. This is going to be probably a high-scoring game. I would imagine probably in the 50s, 60s as far as total points. But not only is it homecoming for Louisville, but Teddy Bridgewater will be getting his jersey retired. So he'll be out there during halftime. I believe he's also bringing a couple of recruits. Calvin Russell, if I'm not mistaken, 2026 wide receiver. That is one of the top targets for Miami in the nation, not only for him, but everyone in the nation. I believe he'll be at that football game tomorrow as well with Teddy and a few others. But you got Teddy Bridgewater's jersey retiring, and then, of course, the Schnellenberger Trophy for the boots. That'll be going on as well. So the winner of this football game will be getting the boots. But this is a do-or-die predicament, in my opinion, for Louisville as far as contention for the ACC. Like I mentioned before, you still got Clemson and Pittsburgh on the docket. You've already played SMU and lost. So I think this is a big game for Louisville. But we gotta buckle up and make sure we get these boys right and come out early in the first and second quarter. I think the running game, like I said at the beginning of the show, I think the running game is going to be a huge testament to how this football game starts off. We're going to have to establish the run early and make sure we don't get behind early to where we can continue to establish that run. Because like you've seen in previous two games, we established that run early, it starts to get going, but then a couple turnovers, couple big mistakes on defense, and now you're looking at the scoreboard, you're down 14 or 17 points early in the second quarter, and there's no time for really running right now. You got to try and play catch up. So I'm looking for this team to not have to play catch up. But other than that, I do think this will be a huge opportunity for a few players on this roster. I do want to talk about a few. Me personally, I think this could be a big football game for maybe someone like JoJo Trader. I think JoJo Trader, true freshman, obviously. When you look at his former teammate, Jeremiah Smith, you obviously see what he's doing over at Ohio State. Not only probably the best true freshman in the country, but probably the best wide receiver in the country as a true freshman. So obviously he's loving the accolades that his boy's getting over at Ohio State, but I know he's looking at the chomps, waiting to get his opportunity at Miami, and I think this will be a huge opportunity for him here tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Another guy I do want to talk about besides JoJo Trader, I think someone like Elijah Arroyo. I think getting the tight ends a little bit more involved. I think when you look at Louisville's defense, they do have a lot of weaknesses on that defense side of the football. But I think especially the linebackers, as far as playing in coverage, is something that I think we can really get a huge mismatch having someone like Elijah Royal out there going to him early to where people aren't double teaming or eyeing and cornering someone like Xavier Strepo very early on in the football game. I also think Damian Martinez should have a pretty big game this game. I'm looking for us to kind of change the formations when we're kind of running the football. I feel like in the past few games, when you look at our running game, seems like we're starting. We get a lot more momentum and guys running downhill while wearing the pistol. So I want to see a little bit more pistol formation. And that's pretty much it on the offensive side of the football. I also do want to give a shout out to, even though Jalen Rivers is coming back, and I expect him to have a pretty good game, and obviously Francis Manoa, who's one of the few offensive linemen in the country that hasn't allowed a sack so far or even a hit. But I do want to give a shout out to Zach Carpenter and the Carpenter family. I think this will be a huge game for him as well. This is a awesome opportunity for him and his family. If you guys haven't heard about the story of what's kind of happened, his father has been battling, I believe, leukemia or lymphoma. I'm sorry, it was lymphoma. Been battling lymphoma. He's been in and out of the hospital for about 5-6 years now. And this will be the first opportunity in a very long time that he gets to watch that in action live at a football game. So you got to love that story. So I want to give a shout out to Carrie, Zach, and the rest of the Carpenter family. I think this is going to be an awesome game for Zach. But we got a special guest popping through. We got our boy Will from 305 Sports Now. Will, what's going on, brother?
Nothing much, man. I thought
Oh, I think he cut out. You there?
yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I'm just walking my dog, so I thought I'd keep you a little company.
No, yeah, what's up, man?
What's up, man? How's it going?
Hey, man, I can't complain. Ready for this game tomorrow. I'll be streaming and watching it at the house with the kids. It's going to be a big opportunity for Miami, like me and you and others mentioned on all of our shows and podcasts. But I mean, first and foremost, man, what's your pre-thoughts on going into the game? What are you looking for? Give me like some of your early keys to the game.
Yeah, well, I think on defense, Miami needs to be incredibly dominant. I mean, incredibly dominant. They need to go back into week 1 Florida mode. I make no mistakes. I keep my assignments. I put pressure. I key in basically in stopping the run, neutralizing their biggest threat at wide receiver. That's what I'm focused on, because Cam is going to get his. Louisville's defense is not that good, especially in pass defense, in defensive backfield. So he's going to get his. But I do expect a little bit better of a running game this time around, because if you saw, before Miami fell back against Cal, they were actually doing some outside runs that were breaking through. So I do think that that's the next step in this offense, is that they're really going to be dominant on the run for all 4 quarters. But as far as defense goes, go back to week 1, keep your assignments. They need to dominate. We need to have a dominant performance. I don't want to hear, well, Miami is one-dimensional on offense. I mean, on one-dimensional, they're just an offensive team. The defense got exposed. I don't want to hear any of that junk. We have one of the best front fours in the country. Ruben Bain is back. Elijah Alst is coming back. Tyler Barron's a beast. Simeon Barrow is in peak form right now. We do have solid linebackers. We can do this, man. We could crush Louisville. Definitely crush Louisville. We're the best team they're facing this year, and we got to prove it.
I definitely agree. And you brought up a good point talking about going back to how we played against Florida. Obviously that was the beginning of the season, so no one knew how Cam Ward was going to play, how this offense was going to look, even the defense, how they came out the first game against a hard-nosed team like Florida. And even though, we give a lot of knock to Florida, they're actually a little bit better than what people think, in my opinion, compared to some of these other teams we've been playing or opponents that have been playing others. But going back to that Florida game, I think, the trenches, especially the early running game, especially Damian Martinez and others, and just being able to hit on all cylinders, it felt like that was the only game that it just felt like a comfort from beginning to end, right? And I think this is a perfect opportunity, to your point, where you're coming off of a bye, You had a great first half of the season, 6-0, right? But now that you're coming off this bye, this is reset mode, right? Now you're 0-0 again. You treat this game just like you're talking about with the Florida game. I think there's a lot of similarities, right? Florida atmosphere, Louisville atmosphere at nighttime would have been a completely different game. You got both of those games early on in the day. Changes a little bit things. You know they got weapons on the outside. You know they got some running backs. You know they got a quarterback that doesn't make many mistakes. But you know their defense is shaky, and you know their trenches. If you get to them early and you out physical them, you know it's night and day situation, and you're going to end up taking over that game. So very similar to how Florida is. I think this is another similar game to that, and you made a lot of great points for that, man. I think this team has to be in reset mode and kind of treat this Louisville game as if nothing just happened these last 6-7 weeks.
Yeah, and Louisville's front four is a little better than what they've showed this season. Not a little bit. They're much better than they showed this season. Ashton Gelati had 11 sacks last season. This year, I think he only has about 2 or 3, if I'm not mistaken. He's due for a big game. I just don't want it to be against us. And he's going to be extra motivated because, like I was telling a friend of mine today, everybody wants to throw their best punch at Miami right now. Miami is a top 10 team. Miami is, even when they're having off seasons, they're still a team, of pedigree, of history, of swagger, so teams want to put their best out and give their best performance against the Canes. That's what Cal did. Cal used their bye week to prepare for Miami, and they came out swinging. And I'm glad that we delivered the final blow against that team, So I just think that if we do our P's and Q's and we dot our I's and cross our T's and schematically stick to what we're supposed to do, we should dominate that game. I just think we're better. I think we're better than Louisville.
And I was talking about it earlier in the show before you hopped on, man. I mean, to your point about we're going to get, the best shot of Louisville. I think we've seen ever since the South Florida game that we've been getting the best shot of these opponents. This is kind of like the Super Bowl for them. And going to Louisville, the Braun brothers, they love these type of situations. They love these games. When you look at the history of Jeff and Brian Braun, they usually have 1 or 2 big games every year that they're the underdog, that they end up pulling out a W because of the game plan, because of the play calling. They are not shy about running trick plays. So again, I think the Cal game, what you saw in the Cal game, right? When you listen to the media, even after the game, there were a lot of fans and even the media at Cal that were like, where were these big plays that we scored on against Miami? Where have these been at all year? And those were the 4 or 5 only big plays that they had that really changed the outcome to make them in that game. And those were plays that not only did Miami see, but no one has seen all year. So that's things that you can't just watch on film and game plan for, even having a full bye week, right? So to my point, the Braun brothers, you better believe that they got a few things up their sleeve that you're not going to be able to game plan for. You're not going to be able to watch in the film for. You just have to going to be ready and make sure that you're fundamentally sound and that you're locking in and your eyes aren't going elsewhere, because what we've seen in the past couple of weeks is that Miami is known for doing that.
Yeah. Braun is a very good play caller. Last year, he used Guidry's aggression against them. People have talked about, online how overly aggressive Lance Guidry's been. And it's not that he's been overly aggressive, is that guys haven't been getting to the positions on time. If you go way back to when Guidry was in Marshall, it's not like the Manny Diaz blitzes where it's like you hit home or you get home run on, pretty much. Guidry's defenses always leave somewhat of a space covered. So if you're going to go in on a blitz, there's always a flats covered. He always leaves somebody in coverage. Last season, what Braun did is that he used that against Guidry. He got the ball out quick, and before the man could get back into position, the guy already had 5, 8, 10 yards already picked up in a first down. So what I think Miami needs to do is obviously learn from that and figure out a way to maybe play a little bit more coverage, blitz maybe 5, and just hold your positions and make the tackles quickly. Because I think with 4 or 5 we could pressure Show. We don't need necessarily to bring the house on him all the time, unless it's a 3rd and long situation where you can pin your ears back and take him out. But I think Miami needs to kind of like realize that Braun is going to prepare for Miami's aggression, and we need to prepare to counter that on defense.
Absolutely. And we're going to have to make sure that we tackle in space, because one thing I do know is that they're going to get their playmakers, whether it's the running backs or the wide receivers, they're going to get them out in space very early on. to where they're going to make it and leave it up to our corners, our linebackers, and safeties to make that one-on-one tackle. Because I promise you, this is one team where if you miss that one tackle, they're gone. That JD Knott situation that you saw against Cal, that's going to happen every single time if you don't wrap up and tackle. So this is just going back to my point again, man. The fundamentals is going to be very key for this game. And this is going to be a Lance Guidry football game. I think a lot of us have a lot of high praise, and I think a lot of us respect Lance Guidry so far as a DC. Things have been a little shaky here and there, but I think this is a game where he could really rebound and kind of reset himself and say, hey, man, this is why I'm Lance Guidry. This is why you guys have been believing in me. I'm going to show you guys that this is a big-time game where we understand that they're going to be throwing out all the stops. And you heard him in the presser, man. He said that we believe that we have the right game plan to make sure that they have all the stops of this football game. But it's going to be a high-scoring game. I don't expect this to be a low-scoring one. I think both offenses are going to have, 250, 300 passing yards. I think Tyler Shuck is a very underrated quarterback. I honestly think he's probably going to be the quarterback out of everyone that we play all year that's going to test our defense the most. And I think this is also going to be the best OC and game planner coordinators that will test us the most as far as the offensive side of the football that we'll see all year. So, again, going back to what I said, this will be a defensive win for Miami to win this football game, I believe.
Yeah, one thing we got to be careful with, too, Shell doesn't turn the ball over. So we have to make sure we don't make any mistakes. He's very smart with the football. But he does have a tendency of holding the ball a little bit too long once he's rattled a bit. So if we can keep our coverage assignments, eventually Barron, Bain, or Barrow will get home, and you'll rack up sacks that way, push him back and put him in positions where you could blitz a little bit more and prevent, easy first downs. So I think that it is going to be a defensive battle. It's going to be a schematic war between Braum and Guidry. Like I said, I don't think Dawson's going to have any problems against Louisville's defense because there's just too many weapons on this team. Too many weapons on this team. The only way that Miami could lose this game offensively is if they shoot themselves in the foot, which they almost did against Cal quite a few times. Not hitting their checkdowns, going for big plays when the smaller plays are available. If we play Hurricane football, going back to again week 1, and even against even against like the Ball States and so on, where we did check the ball down even in those games to make the defense come closer to getting hit the big play, then Miami should be smooth sailing. But I do agree with you. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, but I do think Miami, if they do what they're supposed to do on defense, they could run away with it in the end.
Nah, I'm right there with you, man. We got another special guest that's going to be joining us here in a second, man. Yeah, we're going to kind of switch things up. We've been talking a lot about what we hope to happen in the game tomorrow, but I got a special guy with me backstage that he's been behind the scenes and behind the game for a long time, man. He knows his stuff. He is deep into the recruiting game, man. He does a lot for these kids around, man. So I want to bring up my guy as well, Coach Guerrero. What's up, man?
What's up, Brad? How you doing, buddy?
What's up, brother?
How's
we got Coach with us today, man. This man has a top shelf 7-on-7 out there in Georgia. Is also a linebackers coach as well, director of operations. What's going on, brother? How are you?
Man, not too bad up here trying to stay warm.
Dude, hey, man, everywhere it seems like the degrees is dropping. I'm in Central Florida, and it's a lot more colder now. I don't even got to turn on the AC. I just leave the windows open, and I'm good.
Yep.
It's 47 where you're at, right, Coach?
Well, I'm up in Marietta.
Oh, okay.
Just a little bit north of the city of Atlanta. So it's been like in the 30s the last few days,
Man.
So yeah. You're leaving the windows open a little bit during the day, but yeah, at night, I'm sick, so I like to leave the windows open all night. Yeah. My lady doesn't like that too much, but it is what it is.
So Coach, man, we obviously, we're gearing up for this Louisville matchup tomorrow. Before we kind of talk about your background and get the guests and the listeners and viewers kind of familiar with your background, just we'll ask you a couple things. What are some keys that you're looking for in tomorrow's matchup for Louisville against Miami? Because obviously, people that don't know, you are a big time Miami Hurricane fan as well.
Yeah.
So what are you looking for in this game tomorrow?
Man, we got to stop explosive plays. That's like the biggest thing. Stop some explosive plays. I mean, look what they did against SMU. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, second half, it was a different game, but that first half, I mean, both teams kept trading them off left and right. I don't think the Louisville defense is all that, you know. Don't get me wrong, they're still talented, right? But you know, you punch them in the mouth early, you know. And the one thing, and I'm kind of getting off on Louisville and going on switching over to our stuff, but like, I don't want to see us keep going deep and keep looking for these home run plays every single time. Take what the defense is giving us, drive down the field, and let's go score some points. Keep putting us in position to continuously score and be successful. You know, and I think that's kind of what's we've gotten away from the last two games, Virginia Tech and Cal. You know, Cam's looking downfield, trying to find guys open downfield instead of taking what they give you, you know. And I'd really like to see our running game finally get some things going. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, they do pretty well, but I'm still waiting to see Martinez, you know, have a big time game finally, you know. And it's not like we don't got an offensive line, but at the same time, you know, we just got to finally put it all together from start to finish. You know, no more of these slow starts. You know, we started fast against Florida, and we've just kind of like tailed off a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, we find ways to win, and this is what I keep talking to my boys about recently. It's like, think about the last 10, 15 years. The situations that we find ourselves in this year is situations that we always end up losing in previous seasons. You know, we go down and it doesn't look like we have the heart to come back and fight to win. You know, a situation against Virginia Tech, that Hail Mary, like, seasons past, we don't get that call, regardless of how everyone wants to look at it. You know, I was sitting there freaking out. You know, clearly I was excited when they came out and said incomplete, but you know, it definitely had you worried, you know, that, oh crap, this is how it's going to happen. It would have been typical Miami fashion for us to lose that way. Like, let's be honest. But, you know, I really think that you can see the team is really starting to take on the personality of Mario Cristobal on the staff.
Yep.
And that kind of, you see what Mario Cristobal did at Oregon, right? And if anyone ever saw the Mario Cristobal FIU teams, like, don't get me wrong, they weren't always the best teams. But as he was getting towards the end of his run at FIU, he had several really good teams that were very physical for being in the Sun Belt, you know. I mean, he really learned the DNA of Saban, brought that to Oregon, and seems like he's bringing it here, you know, and it's so refreshing to see, honestly. I mean, like, I've been a fan of the Miami Hurricanes. I've lived in South Florida for 26 years before I ended up moving up here. Chuck Pagano was my neighbor. And when he was still on staff with Butch, I was 8 years old, going down to Miami, in the locker room, in the meeting rooms, on Green Tree, seeing things on a day-to-day basis. When you're meeting these guys that played through those teams, like, how could you not become a fan? And that's what I tell my kids that I coach now. I'm like, how could you not be a fan of that? Right? You guys are just too young. You didn't get to see this stuff. You didn't get to live it. Like, I got to be there behind the scenes, seeing it all. And it was one of the greatest times, you know, even for a little kid. And then clearly Butch and them leave. Coker takes over. We get to see my first national championship as a fan, you know, live. And then it's just been downhill from there, you know. Unfortunately, it's been downhill from there. Had a lot of friends that played at Miami. Brandon Linder was one of my teammates growing up. And then I had a couple other friends that walked onto the team and were down there. So I was down there during the Al Golden years. I got to see the backside of that too. And, you know, there's a reason why we probably weren't as good during those times. But, hey, it was still a really cool insight to see things happening from behind the scenes. And then now, man, you know, running the 7-on-7 program, doing what I'm doing with that, you know, some other things, Brad, that you and I have talked about, you know, offline, which I can't really talk about, but it's just different. It's different. Hearing coaches, hearing the players talk. Nye Carr played for our 7-on-7 team, so talking to Nye on almost a weekly basis, just checking in, how's things going. That kid is loves it. And this is, you're talking about a down south Georgia boy. I mean, like Colquitt County is not much further south than you can go in Georgia. I mean, that's right down the street from FSU. And I'm surprised, that they didn't try going harder at him. Very glad that he ended up choosing Miami. But, we got a lot of dogs on the team, and the competition level has been raised under Mario Cristobal and his staff. They don't care if you're the number one receiver. They're going to still go out and they're going to go get more. And it just takes that when you have all these dogs in there, everyone's pushing each other. It raises the competition level. And, it's just really, really, really awesome to see.
Man, I love it. Like I just hinted to the chat before I brought you on, man. You do a lot of stuff behind the scenes that you don't even try to get credit for, or you don't even try to ask for anything, man. But you just do a lot for these kids, and you're pretty plugged in, man. And you got a lot of good deeds coming your way, man. I think all the things you're doing for these young men, man. You're someone that is easily being able to get looked up to as well for these kids, man. So the fact that you're able to push them in the right direction, man, that's awesome stuff. Well, what are your thoughts on kind of the direction of you've seen with this program? Coach just talked about his transition from being 7 years old to now, and kind of seeing the ups and downs. And obviously you've been a Hurricane fan for a very long time as well. Seeing the transition of the Butch, even before that to now, how do you feel of where we currently at? Because I think even Mario didn't shy away from it, and he kind of told us like this was going to be at least a 4 to 5 year transition, and I think we're a year ahead schedule right now. And then a lot of it has to do with Cam Ward, I believe, but I think we're a year ahead right now. This is only year 3, and I think by year 4 you were hoping to get to where we're at now. So how do you feel on the whole transition of where we're at?
Well, gentlemen, I remember.
Yeah, I was going to say
My first championship in 1987. I remember the non-Cleveland Gary fumble in Notre Dame. I was 8 years old. I remember we beat the crap out of them later on, as well in 1989. I go way back, so I suffer with the team. All right, as well, I've suffered through 47-0 against Florida State. I went through all of it, and then to go back in 2001 and see that team that became the greatest team in history, that was just euphoric for me. And the last 20 years, a lot of promises, a lot of hopes, and being dashed. It sucked, but I do think that this program is going in the right direction. I even like our quarterback room post Cam. I like Emory Williams. I like Reese. I like Luke coming in as well. I like Darion Coleman backing him up. In 2026, this team is going back to what it was before. Leadership in the locker room, guys that want to play and play to win championships, and just get it done. It's a me put me on social media type of deal. It is taking the personality of Mario, which is tough, hardworking, gritty, passionate, right? Those are the things that I'm seeing with this football team, and I'm welcoming this transition, especially this season, because Cam is him, man. Cam is the ultimate alpha dog leader, and no one's harder on himself than Cam Ward, and that's what you want out of your quarterback. You want your quarterback that, number one, holds his teammates accountable, but also holds himself accountable as well.
Can I just say one thing about Cam? That Cal game trying to come back, I'm sitting there yelling at the TV, why is he so damn calm? Why is our staff so calm? Like, yeah, I was freaking out. I'm sitting there with my buddies, my girlfriend's in the room with us, and I'm just looking at her like, this is scary. Like, there's no way. And that's something that they talk about all the time now, right? Because like, you see the college football analysts, you see some of these NFL analysts that start talking about him, and it's just like, yeah, they keep talking about how calm this kid is, how cool, calm, and collective he is. Doesn't matter. That kid is so calm under pressure. And like, that's really what you want at quarterback, But that's the kid's been around. He played it. What was it? And is Carnett Ward, whatever the hell school
and
is.
then Washington State.
What division is that? FCS, or is that even less than that?
That's less than FCS, I think.
I think Carnivore is like a junior college.
Is it?
It's a junior college.
Yeah, I believe so.
He's been around. He's done it at every level. I mean, like he finally has an offensive line that can really protect him. Now, I see some things lately where, I mean, we've had some injuries, so it'll be nice to have Jalen Rivers back. But I like seeing the progress of Markel Bell too. I mean, like that dude is a monster.
Yes.
It's just going to take, it's going to take him some time. What do we have? 3 more years with the kid. So
and you gotta also know too. I mean, you know this obviously with the way recruiting is, and now with the NIL and transfer portal, it is guys like Markel Bell. That guy is going to be a hot commodity after this year, regardless how much he played for Miami or didn't play for Miami this year. Just because Mario and Mirabal believed in that guy, they brought him in, and he's gone through the best of the best offensive line training that you can get. And even if he hinted and wanted to leave, having the starting ability very early on for someone like Markel Bell shows the belief that Mirabal and Cristobal believed in him from the beginning. And that makes it a lot tougher on some of these kids to where then after the season, when the Ohio States and the Texas and the USCs are throwing all this money in bags at you, a lot of times it's not about the bag. It's about the people that you believe in, that they trust you from the beginning, right? It's about the relationships. And that is going to be one guy in particular, along with, maybe a McCoy, right? I think McCoy is another offensive lineman that, if without the playing ability that he's had so far this year, or just the belief that both coaches have had, along with Ed Pata and others, that's another guy that could possibly, test the waters of the transfer portal. So having the early playing time, not only early playing time, but starting, at a D1 program, and having guys trust you, having a guy like Cam Ward as your quarterback, that's a lot on your resume early on, to where he could use that to go to any school in the country if he wanted to. But I think this is going to really show that this staff really believed in the fundamentals and everything, and the progress that he's done off the field to lead up to the season. It's gave him the opportunity to play early.
Yeah. It's great to see. I love the way that this staff rotates players. I was talking to my dad about this recently because he's a big Cane fan too, and he's the defensive line. We were talking defensive line recruiting. He and I just, I don't know, yesterday or the day before yesterday, and it's just like, bro, imagine next year. Who knows what they plan to do along the defensive line or defense transfer portal in general. Like, it's going to be crazy if you decide to bring in another one. If not, look what you got in the doghouse already. Lightfoot, McConaughey, Dane. You're still going to have Austin for another year. Like, you're going to lose some things on the interior. You're going to lose a Tyler Barron, but at the same time, like, it's not like they're don't have dogs waiting in the wind. So it's like, it's going to be really fun to see, and they rotate them nonstop. And they may not rotate the offensive line as much as they do defensive line, but at the end of the day, a lot of these younger guys are getting in and they're getting time. And that's the one thing that I know that they can sell easily, and they have been since they got here, is freshmen are going to play. Young guys are going to play, and you see it every single week. And I mean, at the end of the day, what pays? Snaps, getting experience, Go ahead. I was someone about to say something.
No, go ahead, Will.
Yeah. No, I wasn't going to say anything. I was listening. I was just agreeing with Coach.
Yeah, but like, honestly, the snaps, the experience, and that goes for every position group. I mean, like, I'd like to see more from our receivers. I'd like to see if JoJo is definitely 100% healthy. And I know he got in against Cal. As the season winds down, first off, we got to stop playing down to our opponent's level, in my opinion. That's been our issue for years. We've always had talent. Now we may not have had the talent to play with the Alabamas and the Georgias and the Clemsons of the world years ago, but I think now it's a much level playing field across the board from every single position. You know, we're lacking a little bit still in the secondary. Injuries don't help. You know, so they're going to need to address that this coming off season. You see the recruiting class that they're already bringing in, but don't be surprised if they go hitting the portal for more of them. You know, but at the end of the day, you're going to play the best 11, and if they get a good rotation in the back end, man, listen, people are just going to keep flocking here. And to be honest, why not come to Miami? And like that's me with being a fan, but also me being a coach. Like when it comes to coaching, when it comes to my kids' recruitment, I take my fan hat off. And like I know for being in the big three Twitter space and things like that, like you don't want to say that to our fan base because oh my God, you're the worst thing out there. But at the end of the day, like it's not about me and it's not about my love for the school. Like believe me, I'm always telling kids like go check out Miami, go down to Coral Gables, make sure that's at least one of your visits. But at the end of the day, like I'd be selfish as hell telling a young man that when it's not my life. I've already done it. I've been there. It's their turn. Go where fits you and what's going to benefit you the most. And
I was just gonna say, you know, I want to actually transition into some recruiting talk because obviously we got you in here and you've been talking a little bit about it. And I think honestly, I think everyone's, you know, talked a lot about this Louisville matchup, but I want to kind of get our opinions on kind of what's been happening behind the scenes. We talked about the transition of, you know, our fan experience in our lifetime of seeing the transition on the field, but I don't think fans, at least people not like us, understand what happens and what goes on behind the scenes to build to those moments, right? To get to where we are with a Mario Cristobal. Talk about you being a coach and you obviously being in the 7-on-7 circuit, how important that is to recruitment nowadays, and just seeing that transition on the field as a fan, going from what it was the last 10, 15 years to now. But on the other end, the recruiting end has been just as dramatic of what we're seeing on the field just because of having a guy like Mario, Coach Dennis Smith, and some of these other, you know, guys behind the scenes that are just so hungry, and the relationships that they build with these guys, they don't sugarcoat anything. They tell you how it is up front. And when you really talk to these young men, they all have that common denominator of just like the love of football, like the eat, breathe, sleep, love the game of football. Do they play basketball? Do they run track? Yeah, they do that. But at the end of the day, when you start talking to them about football, their demeanor changes, their eye changes, their voice changes. It's like they're locked in. And you're starting to see that whether it's a transfer portal guy, whether it's a true freshman, you're starting to get a certain DNA with every certain player that you talk to. But just talking about recruitment, talk to me about that transition that you've seen from the last 10 years to now, and just obviously how hard it was for you as a coach and a fan, you know, taking that Miami fan hat on and saying, hey, you know, make sure Miami's one of those schools. You saying that 3-4 years ago, your kids are probably laughing at you, right? Or being like, yeah, coach is just tripping again. Yeah, don't worry about him, right? But now you say it and it's like, yeah, coach, what you mean? You could find me a way over there? Like, let's go. Like, what are we waiting on, right? Tell me about that transition of what you've seen as a coach firsthand.
Well, what you read in a lot of these articles, be it Canes Insight, 247, whatever, when people are talking about how relentless of a staff on the recruiting trail we have, that is no joke. That's no lie. That's no fluff. They really are. They eat, breathe, sleep this game. They eat, breathe, sleep recruiting. I mean, like, if they're not constantly on the phones trying to get in touch with these kids, either calling them, texting them, getting in touch with their parents, developing those relationships. Because at the end of the day, you can recruit the kid, but you also need to recruit the parents. The parent has to be comfortable enough to be able to say, hey, I trust you to send my son to be with you for the next 3 to 4 years, right? And who knows, maybe they redshirt and they stay for their 5th year. But regardless, these guys are some of the most genuine dudes. They're not going to sugarcoat anything. Like you said, Brad, they're not going to sugarcoat a thing. They're going to tell you straight up what they see on film, what you can work on. They're gonna give you a little pat on the back for like, oh, you do this well, you do this well, but they're not gonna sit here and just blow your head up and fill it up with, oh, you're the greatest player on the face of the earth. You know, they're gonna tell you straight up, hey, look, you're a great player. You come here, this is what we're gonna fix. Right. And this is how we're going to do it. They lay out a real strategic plan for these kids and what it's going to look like for the next 3 years. In some cases, hey, you're going to be here for probably 4 years straight up. Like, don't expect anything else. You're going to probably be here for 4 years. You probably may get redshirted your freshman year, but at the end of the day, like, we're going to develop you. You're going to become a real young man here. You're going to learn how to be a football player. And all you're going to do is eat, breathe, sleep this stuff. And, you know, it's crazy to see, like, you know, I've tried my hardest as a coach, especially with the 7-on-7 scene, trying to get in touch with the Mark Rick staff. Almost impossible. I tried my hardest to get in with the Diaz staff. And as much as I wish I could have been in, just to help push some names that, you know, Brad, that you and I had talked about, just to get their names out on the scene early. You know, but this staff, honestly, they've got so many people in that recruiting department, you know, being able to hit up D-Train or Coach Field or Coach Rump. Like, you can get in touch with them now, you know, and you can have legitimate conversations with these guys. And again, they're not the type of people that are just going to sugarcoat it and just take your call just to take your call. You know, they'll call you, they'll text you, you know, they're really, really, truly genuine people. You know, honestly, like someone that you'd go to the bar with and go hang out and talk ball or watch ball with. Like, they're really, really cool, down to earth people. And, you know, I think having that more so than what our previous staff was like. You know, and I didn't know them like that. You know, I had been down there, I'd been around, I'd see how they interact with people, you know, but for that staff, if they didn't think that they had a chance, they'd just look at your offer sheet pretty much and be like, yeah, we don't have a chance here. Whereas this staff they don't care about that. They don't care. I mean, you've seen it. We'll go up against Ohio State any day of the week. Rusty Manziel said it best. You don't want to go up against Mario when the clock's on when the clock is ticking out. You don't, because they don't sleep. This is all they know how to do, you know, and all that time and investment that they've put into building these relationships, getting to know these young men and their families, figuring out their background, true evaluation of a kid top to bottom, on the field, off the field. That's where you're seeing, you know, that mold of player that we're starting to go after. You know, we're hitting on the portal left and right. It's crazy. You're hitting on high school kids left and right. I got friends that are clearly, you know, Florida fans, whatever fan, and one of my buddies is a Florida fan. He's always saying 3-stario or whatever, you know, whatever the Florida fans call Mario, right? Taking all these 3 stars. Damn it, look at all of our 3 stars that end up panning out and looking like a real player. I mean, like Mr. Alabama that we just got, Cole McConaughey or whatever, however you pronounce it. Bro, kid's a dog. Mm-hmm. You see Ruben Bain out here working with him when Ruben's out. He's hurt, and he's out on the field pregame working hand movements with him. You know, like, you don't. Maybe maybe it is that championship type mentality. Now you've got a lot of kids in there that have been there, won at the high school level, played in these. Because South Florida football is different than it used to be when I was in high school. You didn't have all these super teams when, you know, the floodgates were open for kids to transfer schools. So like now you go to like a Miami Central, you have these kids transferring from Broward County, from out of state, whatever, to come down here. And now you've got all these 4 or 5-star kids around you, right? St. Thomas Aquinas, Chaminade Madonna, those type of schools, right? So let's be honest. That's what college is now. You know, and it's been like that for a while. Like, clearly you want to recruit, and you're going to recruit, you're going to win. At least that's the notion of it. But Um, it's so great to see that we're recruiting from these big time schools that have a championship pedigree. They know what workouts are like. They know how to lift. They know how to practice hard. They're leaders in and out of football. Then they come in and that standard goes from there, and they come in and they're like, okay, now we got all these older guys to look up to, right?
Yeah.
And our older guys are ready to seem like they're ready to pass that torch on. Clearly we're only 6 games into the season. Our week 7's, or really, I guess, what's it, week 8 tomorrow? We're getting to the end of the season. It's already, you snap your finger, you blink your eyes, and we're already there, and it's crazy that it's already gone by this fast. But I think that this upper class that we have has really, really taken on that leadership role, and they're tired of seeing what Miami has been and what they've been through as Miami Hurricanes, and I mean, how many 6-0 teams have player only meetings on their bye week? When does that happen? It's typically, we started off 0-2, 0-3, 0-4. We gotta get the ship turned around, and then they decide to have type of meeting, and it's
we're definitely
go ahead.
We're definitely in a different predicament for sure. Will, what's your thoughts on the recruiting blueprint of Mario Cristobal and kind of some of the, whether it's some of the crazy stories? Well, I'm gonna bring up a couple after you answer this, but just what's your overall point on Mario's recruiting, and kind of maybe if there's 1 or 2 guys out there that you were just surprised we've landed in the Mario Cristobal era, or just a guy that you've loved to see the transition of the development just because of who Mario and the staff is and who they're bringing into this football program.
Yeah, well, the one thing about Coach Cristobal, it's not just about his relentless recruiting, is that he also establishes relationships with his players, and he uses his players that are currently on the roster, whom he brought in, and some others that may have been from the previous coaching staff that have bought into Mario's scheme and system, and they're able to speak on behalf of his team. Like, for example, we saw in the Florida game, which I don't know why they would put a bunch of recruits in the visiting locker room area, but that was historic, as his players alone were like, don't even go here, come to our school. That's a form of recruiting. It was funny as hell, but that's a form of recruiting. And Mario's very big on establishing relationships. Give an example. You talked about a story, Luke Nickel, Mr. 3-Stario. Luke Nickel was offered by Miami way before anybody else, even Georgia, his home state school, was even looking at him. And look at him now. He's a 4-star recruit, probably about to win back-to-back state championships for his school. The kid's is an all-around beast. And he was very grateful because Mario and his staff saw something that none of the other Power 4 schools saw in him. He's also very honest. I'm friends with Bobo Arguita's father. We went to high school around the same time, so we talked quite a bit. And he said Mario was very straightforward with him when he was in his house. And he told him, listen, basically, I'm summarizing, you're going to compete, it's not going to be handed to you. You have to work hard, and I believe you can. And the one thing about culture is that Bobo is a kid. I'm telling you, he told me when I interviewed him, he didn't like what he saw in the previous staff as far as discipline goes. And then he saw what Mario was bringing to the table, and that's why he came to Miami. If not, he probably would have gone to Alabama with Nick Saban, because that was like his second choice, from what I understand. So that's the thing with Mario, and the culture's changing. The players feel loved. The parents trust their kids with Mario. When I was at the spring game, Zaquan Patterson's mom, Coach Cristobal walked right by her by mistake and didn't say anything, and she's like, "Excuse me, Coach Cristobal, you're not gonna say hi to me?" And he's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Give like a huge hug, and he is very genuine. He's very genuine. He loves the work. He loves the kids. He loves the school, which is very important. He wants to build this program and build it successfully for years to come. And by the way, Coach, you mentioned three stars. How about Xavier Restrepo, who's about to be the Kings' leading receiver, another 3-star recruit as well, and he's just flat out balling in general. It's about player development as well, and we all know some of these kids are undervalued by these recruiting agencies as well. So that's how I see it. It's about building relationships, being honest, showing you care, and development. And it's obvious these young men are being developed at the University of Miami.
Yep. Well, it's funny.
We talk, and Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead,
No, I
Coach.
was gonna say it's funny you bring up Luke Nickel. So where I'm at, I'm like 5 minutes, 10 minutes away from Milton High School. So I go and see them play. That kid, I've seen him for the last 3
He's a
years.
beast.
Bro, beast. Beast.
Hmm.
It made no sense that no one was giving him any love. It made no sense that these recruiting services were giving him no love whatsoever. And he'd go out here, he does it for Cam Newton's 7-on-7 program, dots everybody up, puts balls in places that you wouldn't even realize that someone can do. I mean,
Yeah.
legit. He did it last week against Gainesville in front of Dawson. And I mean, there's a video of Dawson sitting right in the back corner of the end zone, and he throws a fade ball to the back corner, the back shoulder. Receiver is looking right at him, catches it on the backside shoulder, falling right in Dawson on the sidelines. Like, it takes real development from a high school quarterback to make that type of throw.
Yeah. Coach, I'm sorry to interrupt you. May I share my favorite Luke Nickel play?
Yeah,
if you don't mind.
Yeah.
He was a sophomore. He was still under recruited. He was a sophomore. I saw defensive end go after his ankles. He was scrambling outside. Offensive end goes after his ankles, and while on the run, he throws this beautiful dime post pass to his wide receiver who was in single coverage. Receiver catches the ball in stride, runs for a touchdown. That is a sophomore at the time. He was a sophomore with a defensive end draped all over him, throwing on the run, and is still able to put the ball in place for his receiver to get it and score. That play has been ingrained in my mind ever since I started covering him 2 years ago.
Listen.
Yeah, man, and Darion Coleman does the same thing as well. And the fact that we got both of those guys locked in is very scary. And when you talk to recruits, whether it's this year, next year's class, or even the following, that's a kid that I know Cane fans are very happy with Cam Ward. And obviously we talked about Luke Nickel as well, who I think is going to be awesome as well. But we got to understand and know, if you want to build championships, you got to build every single room. You can't just have one alpha in the room. You got to be able to push those other guys. So even though we're talking about Luke Nickel, Darion Coleman's a guy that's going to push the envelope, because that's just what he does on the football field. And when you talk to recruits, especially not only in his class in the 2026, but even in 2025 and 2027, 2028, people respect that young man. They respect the way he plays on the field, but they even respect him more off the field. And the fact that he is telling others that the love and the buy-in that this team and this program has shown him at such an early stage, similar to how we're talking about Luke Nickel, is not only paying dividends for him with the trust of this coaching staff, but it's starting to create a huge wave and domino effect for a lot of other recruits in the areas, to where now a school like Armwood High School, which never gets Miami kids, is going to start to be a nice little pipeline, I think, in the next couple of years, where you're going to start seeing the best of the best kids from Armwood possibly go to Miami. You already got Pringle. You got a kid in Kellen Riley that I expect to be a Miami Hurricane. You also got Jalen Waters, 2026 corner. And then, of course, you got Tyler Williams, wide receiver, who's a Georgia commit currently. But you can't rule out Miami the way that they've been playing. But going into this recruiting that we've been talking, we're hitting an hour and 3 minutes now on the show. I kind of want to wrap things up here shortly. But I want to ask each of you your favorite recruiting story from Mario Cristobal before we wrap things up. And I'll go ahead and start off with mine. I heard in the Kevin Clark interview the other day with Mario Cristobal, which was a great interview. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you do it. He talked about a scenario at Oregon where it was during a period where they couldn't travel to see this recruit. They couldn't have contact with him at the time. So they were trying to find loopholes, try to find ways to where they could get to this kid. They ended up dressing up the graduate assistant in the Oregon mascot uniform and flying him across the country to see this young man. And he ended up committing to Oregon and taking a picture with this mascot, who ended up being the graduate assistant at the time. And this was something that they knew was a loophole at the time, very similar to the Oregon head coach recently that made a awesome play call decision and found the loophole in the NCAA, where now they had to rechange the rules. And this was, again, another recruiting scenario where it goes back to the relentless effort of Mario Cristobal and just things that he thinks outside the box in order to get things done. But that was just one that I heard through Kevin Clark. The one that I know personally that I want to share is this. Recently, I'm not going to give the guy's name. In the last year, as y'all know, Twitter Spaces are pretty popular. You never know who's in there, who's listening. Now they got the anonymous listeners, so you never know who's got their ears to the voice, right? Well, in the last year, there's been a pretty big recruit that not only Miami's going after, but other schools in the state are going after. And one school in particular that he's committed to, this school hasn't been doing very well. And, you know, the one of the people in their corner that is very vocal, you know, someone that you should trust of the young man, he's been very vocal in Twitter Spaces before the season started, even gearing up for few of the games and being very vocal about saying, hey, Miami's not the school. We're all in on this school. We're not going anywhere else. I don't trust this school. I don't even trust the coach that would be coaching my son at Miami. Right? Well, guess what? 3-4 weeks go by. And now not only does he trust Miami, not only does he trust Mario, but throughout this whole process, he didn't trust Miami and Mario so much, and he was so bought into the school his son is currently at, that he blocked Mario on all Twitter platforms, right? Blocked him. Didn't even want to hear from him, right? You know how relentless Mario Cristobal is? He called this young man's representative or, you know, person that you should trust in their corner. Mario Cristobal called this man through Facebook video call, randomly. Reached out through Facebook and called him. Didn't message him, say, hey, I'm going to do this, or hey, man, what's up? Just out of the blue, just calls him through Facebook. Calls him. Long story short, 45 minutes after the conversation, these guys are bought into Miami and they believe. So it just goes to show you the relentless effort that Mario and the staff does. And now that you're starting to see things happen on the football field, it's going to start to be an easy transition for how these guys work off the field. But Will, let me start with you, man. Give me your favorite Mario recruiting story.
Can I give you two, if you don't mind? They're both short.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you know this. I teach high school over here in South Florida, and so I know a few people, and I know that he was recruiting. This is just a funny story. I don't remember which kid he was recruiting, but he was at American Senior High School, and it was pretty funny because whoever Mario speaks to, you know, he kind of knows how to make him feel comfortable. Okay, but he wants to feel comfortable. So he was speaking to I think it was one of the administrators over in American High, and you know, Mario's Cuban like myself, and the administrator was Cuban, and he said Mario went full blown Cuban on him. The way he spoke to him, using phrase, bringing the cafecito with himself, and using phrases like "ese tremendo bicho," like he was referring to Cam Ward, by the way. He goes, "Era un bicho ahorita," which you know in Spanish would be like what we would call the big whales coming, but he basically called them in Spanish like the bug. "Era un bicho," you know, ahorita. And he used those phrases when talking to the administrator, and so he didn't say the name, but because he can't do that, but he was referencing that as well. My other favorite story is actually Mark Fletcher's. He was on, it was Footballville podcast, and he was an Ohio State commit at the time. And he was talking about Miami the whole entire interview, felt like. And he talked about how relentless they were in recruiting him. They were still calling him, and they were texting him all the time every day, just checking up on him. When I was done watching the clips of that interview, I said to myself, this kid's flipping. You know, this kid is flipping. When I saw that, and lo and behold, you know, he flipped and became a Miami Hurricane. So that's those are my two favorite stories of Mario Cristobal in the recruiting circuit.
I love it. Coach, what you got?
So can't give away too much, but there is a recruit that's out there currently. I know that he was on a visit at another school. All right. I'm not going to go into where it was, who it was, nothing like that, but he was at a visit at another school. And he got a FaceTime from Mario at the game and in the facility twice. And, you know,
okay,
we'll see what happens. Just put it that way. We'll see what happens. I thought that was like, you got to have some big ones to be able to do something like that while a kid's on another visit. I know that happens a lot of other places. Don't get me wrong, right? But it's just the fact that he does not care where you're at, who you're with, or anything like that. He's going to call you when he wants to call you, and he times it perfectly every time. So when this recruiting class is done, locked up, and portal comes around and gets done and locked up, I think then at that point I'll be able to talk a little bit more. But Brad, with what that I do on the side and everything like that, I got to keep a tight lip.
I got you, man. I already know. I already know, man. But hey, I wanna thank both of y'all so much for joining the show, man. It was a great time. We obviously got to talk a little bit about the Louisville matchup, and then obviously dig into recruiting. So I want to thank Coach and Will, both of y'all for joining us. Will, man, make sure you let the viewers and listeners know once again where they can find your amazing work, man, because you do some great stuff for the Miami Hurricanes fan base.
Oh, thank you, Brad, for having me on, Coach. It's a pleasure meeting you. Keep up the good work over there in Georgia.
Yes, sir.
You can find me on YouTube. Just go to look for 305 Sports Now and just subscribe to my channel and share my content. I recently did an episode on which we all know what happened, the decision of Elijah Griffin, right, as well. So you'll find content there as well. I'll be doing a flip watch soon, which is a very popular segment, possibly on Ben Hanks as well, possibly leaving Florida and going to the Canes. So that's something I'm working on at the moment. And also, if you want to find me on X, it's at William Padron at 305 Sports Now as well.
Love it, man. Y'all heard it, Cane fans. William Padron on X, 305 Sports Now. Appreciate you as always, Will, man. We'll be talking soon. Keep up the good work, man, and go Canes, and we'll hopefully get this W tomorrow.
Thank you.
Coach,
yes, sir.
Please let the Cane fans and all the viewers and listeners know, man, where they can find your awesome work and some of the great things you do for some of these young guys across the country.
Cool. Yeah, right here. Oh, I guess it's on this side. At Coach A. Guerra. I'm on X. I don't really post too much, but you'll see me posting and retweeting all my kids. Whether not everyone's a Power 5 guy, right, or Power 4 guy, but I love my kids, and I try to get them as much exposure as we can. The other thing is, I'll tell you right now, is our Twitter page does change quite often. Let's see, Top Shelf.
Talking about Top Shelf 7on7?
Yeah, I think it is Top Shelf 7v7 on Twitter and on Instagram. So you'll see a lot more of our content, a lot more of our videos on there. Yeah, and we always out here recruiting. We don't stop. So we'll have a nice little team coming up this coming year.
You guys got a nice 2025 DB recently that just got stamped at a big time camp as well. Talk about him and some of the other guys that Miami fans and other college fans need to look out for.
Which one are you talking about?
Cyril? Cyril?
Wait, hold on, wait. This is news to me. Sincere?
Yeah.
Holy! All right, hold on. Now you're catching me off guard. I had no idea. Yeah.
He got stamped to Rivals, didn't he? He got an invite. He got an invite to the Rivals camp, right?
That kid right there, he is one of the nicest kids that you're ever.
He's got some length, man.
Yes, he does. That's one thing that I will say that me and my defensive staff like to do is go out and get these big, long corners. That's what they like in college. Yep. Don't get me wrong. We'll go out and take a smaller guy, but at the same time, Sincere is definitely one of them long, lanky. He's going to be a safety in college. But he's one of them guys. I promise you that. We've had a bunch of guys recently. Trajan Greco, who's now a safety at Mizzou. Really a lot more on the offensive side when it comes to like receivers, but I want to say more of our defensive guys have gone to like G5 schools. Trajan Greco, one of my linebackers that I coached at the high school level and at 7on7, he is now a linebacker at Arkansas. He had a shoulder surgery, so he's out this year. but that's going to be another one. He's 6'3". He's probably 230 right now as a true freshman. So he'll get his red shirt this year, and then he'll go into next year. It's funny because I got him when I got to the high school up here. He was a receiver. He was 6'2.5", almost 6'3", probably weighed 185, 190 pounds. And then
transition.
He started eating, hit another little growth spurt, started putting on the weight. We came into the season and he was already like 205, 210. Going into senior year, he was 220. He looked. It was crazy because now all of a sudden, you go from I'm coach, I'm not getting any love by any of these colleges, blah blah blah. I'm like, just be patient. They just got to come out here and see you. And as soon as they came out, you had Travis Williams, who at the time he was at I think he was at UNC. He was standing right behind me. And then he went to, I think, no, he was at UCF. And then he moved over to Arkansas. And he was standing right behind me. It's like, I need his information as soon as possible. And they were on him from the jump. I mean, J-Lo committed to, I want to say he committed to UVA. And I was like, are you sure about that? And I had another kid that played for us who he's at Georgia Tech now. I was like, you sure you guys want to be at UVA? Tony Elliott.
We got Georgia Tech.
Hey, listen,
got Georgia Tech in what? About a month?
I told him, I go, look, this is the only time you're going to see me not cheering for y'all is when Miami comes to town and you come to Miami. I go, other than that, you got to understand. I'm a diehard fan, baby. I go, but I love you, and I'm always going to cheer for you, regardless if you're playing against us or not. So don't even worry about that.
Well, hey, man, I appreciate both of y'all so much, man.
Yeah.
And like I said, we all three of us, we cheer for the U each and every single day. We'll be able to cheer for them tomorrow, 12 o'clock Eastern. Y'all know what the deal is. Let's see if we get this done tomorrow. I'm expecting a big-time victory for the Hurricanes once again, start off the second half of the season. But again, thank y'all so much for joining us. This is Brad Tejeda, CanesWear Daily Live Podcast, only on the FTSN. We'll see y'all tomorrow at 11:45, right before the game. We're out, fellas. Appreciate y'all so much.
Thank you very much, guys.
Go Canes.